Guys, it's John here, and I wanted to go into our Thursday game. As far as this last week, we had a much better week than week one. Not saying too much, but I think we finished 9-6. We didn't do the Thursday game. I missed the Raiders. I had the Ravens covering. Same with the Jags. Had the Jags covering, so 0-2. We got the Jets cover. The Vikings, I thought they might win, but I went with the cover. We got that. Got the Chargers cover. And the Patriots we lost, which makes us 3-3. Saints, another one. Liked the cover. Thought about the money line, but we got the cover, 4-3. Missed the Commanders and the Bucks, making us 4-5. Packers came through 5-5. Cardinals 6-5, and then 6-6 because we missed the Broncos. And okay, so where are we at? We got the Chiefs because we had the Bengals cover in the 6, putting us at 7-6. Bears covered by half a point, which was nice. It was a 6.5-point spread, so 8-6, and then the Falcons just won outright, 9-6. I had gone into how the Falcons of all of them looked like the biggest trap of all of them, just because Philly's at home, only 6 points seemed odd. So not a bad week. This week I think we'll do even better. I think as the season goes on, we'll kind of see where they have these teams positioned. But I wanted to go into Thursday's game. I think they've done a good job of making the Jets look average. And they're even records. I don't think people want to really just yet pick the Jets minus a whole touchdown. So I think it's kind of a heavy line. You see it opened at 7 even, so you could argue that there's been money on them. So maybe there's more money on the Jets. I really don't pay too much attention to the opening and closing lines. I honestly think they're like psychological tactics. But in this game, I do like the Jets to cover. I think 6 again, it's kind of high. I don't see too many people taking them. I think it's going to be a statement game for the Jets, akin to how the Chargers just pummeled the Panthers. Probably give them an opportunity to make the defense look really good. I would actually expect like a defensive touchdown in this game. I can definitely see a sack, fumble touchdown, or a pick 6, just something of that nature to really solidify the Jets' defense. And I think their whole team's going to look pretty good. So not too much behind this one. Again, I think the Jets are a playoff team this year. I think that it just doesn't make sense to have them not make the playoffs, if I'm being honest. They pulled the rug on Tua, so I think a clean swap, the Jets get in, Dolphins don't, makes the most sense here. And they're showing it as a rivalry, but it's really not going to be one. It's not like Rodgers is going to be around for when the Patriots are actually good. So the real rivalry is going to be when Rodgers plays Josh Allen. I don't know if they play the Chiefs this year. I imagine they probably do have it lined up. And some other good quarterbacks. They probably play the Texans at some point. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot of good rivalries. This isn't one of them. Jets-Patriots. I don't think, again, not until the Patriots actually have a competitive team where there's a couple draws. I can't even think of really many Patriots off the top of my head. They're just that abysmal of a team. And I think they might have a better year than last year because Bill Belichick's gone. Maybe they want a little bit of a penance. But yeah, it's just not much to this one. I think the Jets are going to take it. I think they're going to cover the 6. I see, honestly, maybe not a blowout, but maybe something like 24-7 or something like that. A lower scoring game, but I think the defense probably gives up less than 2 touchdowns, and I think the Jets score somewhere in the mid-20s. As far as props, I've said this before, like any prop I give, you should probably just do the opposite. I don't know what it is. Whoever I take, someone else winds up. If I go with the obvious guy to score a touchdown, the scrub will get one. If I think the scrub's going to get one, the obvious guy will get one. So, not like, again, the only major props I could think of, and it's not even really a prop, but it's a prop bet, but not a player prop. Again, like, will a defensive touchdown be scored? I think that has merit in taking, because I really do think that the Jets defense is going to find a way to score a touchdown. I think Rodgers will have a good game, so maybe over on his passing yards. I just think they're going to start slowly solidifying the Jets as a team to be reckoned with in the AFC. Again, a big part of the reason is because they pulled the rug on Tua. Obviously, people expect the Ravens to be a good team. They are 0-2, but I don't think that's going to mean too much. Bengals, Texans, and I think the Jets are going to be in that conversation. I really do. I can see them finishing like 10-7, something of that nature, and again getting a wild card spot. So, yeah, the biggest things I like here are Jets' defense to score a touchdown, over under. I would lean under just because it's set kind of low, and I do get with the Patriots and Jets, you're usually going to get an over under around this. But given it's a primetime game, I just think people might be a little more inclined to take the over. A couple of I think more of the primetime games have gone over now that I think about it. We haven't had a ton of them, but the ones I'm trying to think of, it seems like they went over. I know the Bears went under. They went way under. And again, it just shows, we got it, but what are the odds? It just happens. The other team's kicker. I think the magnetic field goals might be the most revealing thing from this year, because the announcers even just laughed it off. They're like, isn't it funny how now it's just completely expected for these kickers to hit 55-yarders, and nothing has changed. At least nothing should have changed. And I don't know if you saw the one that bonked off the camera, but I'm convinced they have some kind of magnetic poles, or maybe the mesh netting behind the field goal has some kind of microatomic material in it. It just seems like when these guys line up for 60 yards, they just go right down the middle these days, or they clank off the pole and go in. And last year we brought this up. There was more field goals that I've seen more field goals last year hit the pole probably than the last 10 years combined. So I think the Texans kicker hit 4 50-plus yarders, including a 59. And I think the Bears kicker had a couple of his own over 50. So again, just something I noticed. Again, I'll take it. Of course, they weren't going to pay out the Bears. I kind of liked the money line, but I liked it for the value. But again, with the spread, it just, with all those field goals, all the possible scoring scenarios, it happens to be exactly a 6-point game on a 6.5-point spread. Happens all the time, and I just think more people are waking up to it. I've noticed a lot of newer people on the channel too, which is cool. I appreciate you guys. I think just more and more each year, people are just saying this is enough. I can basically start up a conversation with somebody at the gas station, and there's a good chance, if I'm like, yeah, you think the NFL is scripted, that they'll agree. So, I mean, I'm just waiting for them to come out and admit it. I brought this up last year with all their jokes and satire and damage control. They're all but admitting it. They got McAfee out there. So I'm curious if they're ever going to basically come out and be like, well, yeah, it's a competition, but of course we have to make it somewhat entertaining, or nobody would watch. I think they're going to start making some concessions, but we'll see. I haven't really been on Twitter. I know NFL Twitter is always blowing up, especially after the games. I thought the Bears one was just an interesting one, to put it lightly. Again, guys selling positions all game, so just leaving guys open, missing blocks, just basic stuff. Terrible passes, and it just again happens to finish where the Bears don't win, but they just cover by that half point. So anyway, I don't think that's going to be the case in this game. I think it's going to be, like I said, I just think of Chargers, Panthers, where it's a good game to establish the Jets against some jobbers. And I think that's exactly what we're going to get. Again, really like the defensive props, and I like a defensive touchdown. I can honestly see it. I really can. And it's probably going to be some ridiculous play, like a tip ball or something. Prime time Jets. It just makes sense to me. And again, they can kind of establish the Patriots with, a new coach are obviously not going to be as disciplined, and a new quarterback, etc. Actually, I think they might have had Brissett last year. He's been bounced around the league so much. But yeah, just don't expect too much. I don't think it's going to be a crazy game, but I think it's going to be very defensive oriented. I am going to do a video going into just all the playoff predictions. I kind of covered it towards the end of last year, and not much has changed. I will say the Lions are looking a little too obvious, even though they just lost. I still think the public's going to be on them. Again, usually the top two favorites don't make the finals. The Super Bowl, whatever sport you're looking at. And that would be the case here, where the Chiefs and Lions, not overwhelming favorites, but I can kind of rule out the Niners. I just don't see them doing Niners-Chiefs 3 times. I'm really liking, and I guess I could just kind of cover it here. I'll go into the playoffs in a much deeper dive, but as far as the Super Bowl, my prediction, so it's my week 2 prediction, week 3 prediction, and it's changed just because, and I was on the Lions, not to be cocky, but before anybody. If you watched, just go back like a year, or you just search my channel and type in Lions. I actually, before the season started last year, I said I liked them to win the division, and then I did the video where I think it was like why the Super Bowl is scripted for the Chiefs Niners. In that video, I went into why the Lions were going to go to the NFC Championship. So I've had my eye on them. I'm definitely not sleeping on them. I just think that's a little too obvious. And I think we get Cowboys versus Indians in a political year. Someone did bring up the Commanders Chiefs, which is funny because, Commander in Chief. So like that is kind of interesting. But the Commanders just aren't going to do it, obviously. If any random team came out of the NFC, I think it would be the Bears because of Caleb. But nothing's going to happen with them until they get a new coach. You could just tell that he's not a Dan Campbell. He's not a Harbaugh. He's not the type of coach that I think they're going to have for the playoffs. It'll probably be a former player for the Bears that they'll bring in, whether it's toward the end of this year or if they make the wild card, like I think they have a very good chance they will. Kind of hard to fire the coach, but I could see them definitely doing it, and maybe saying him and Caleb aren't getting along. I just don't see, I think it's like Tom Eulerhouse, whatever his name is. I just don't see him as a coach that they're going to really push the team behind. But again, I thought Commander in Chief was kind of an interesting find by someone did put that out there. But I think it's going to be Cowboys and Indians. I really do. Again, it's a political year, and they've done a great job, I think, of scaring anybody, even their own fans, off the Cowboys. Like, I'd say for the first year in a long time, even though a lot of people are always joking, like, it's kind of like the Celtics. Well, I picked the Celtics last year. A lot of people were like, oh, they're just going to pull a Boston, And it was because they had done it in multiple years prior. So it kind of set it up. And I think that's kind of what's going on with the Cowboys. Oh, they're just going to pull Cowboys, especially if they have Jerry Jones. And I think this might be the swerve, I think the Cowboys are going to have like a modest season. Again, maybe 11-6, something like that. And even if they win the division, maybe they get like the 3 or 4 seed, nothing crazy. And then, I think they make the most sense if you really think about it. The Vegas odds aren't crazy, so Vegas wouldn't be paying. They're not that big of a liability. And I don't think that much of the public's going to be on them just because of the lack of faith in the Cowboys. So that's just my opinion. Of course, it might change. I'm not perfect. And I often, will reassess and look at things. But, usually when I put down a prediction, it stands. I don't just change it because it's convenient. Obviously, if like a team I like gets bumped out of the playoffs, then I'm going to obviously have to reassess. But I don't see this one changing. I looked at the NFC, and once you eliminate the Lions and Niners, which I have for the reasons I've gone over, really only leaves Dallas. I mean, again, we're going to get Philly again. It just doesn't make sense to me. So it only leaves a handful of teams. I know a lot of people like the Packers. I really don't think they're going to do much this year. That division, I think, is being crowded by Caleb Williams and the Lions. So I don't think there's much room, in my opinion, for the Packers to blow up. Again, if a team came out of the NFC North, I'm actually looking at the Bears just because of the love they have for Caleb Williams. And Caleb Mahomes, especially by the end of the year, would draw. So the Bears would actually be like my back pocket X-Factor team. But again, I think they're going to wait, get rid of the coach, probably a year or two. We'll see Caleb really go nuts. Again, maybe they sneak into the wild card this year just to make it interesting. Get like the Niners or something versus the Bears in the first round just to get Caleb. Again, we would have first versus last with Caleb. We went into this too last year. It was one of the reasons I liked the Lions to make the NFC Championship. I liked the idea of, I believe it was Purdy versus Goff, right? The first pick versus the last pick in the draft. First versus last. I think makes more sense in the Super Bowl. But either way, I think if you can get that matchup, which again I think there's a good chance we'll get this year, especially because there's quite a few first overall picks. I think Baker was a first overall pick. Could be wrong. And we had that last year too, where Baker played the Lions, and then they kind of called it a rivalry this last week. But obviously you still have Goff. Now you have Caleb, who might get into the playoffs. So I think we'll have a couple first versus last with Purdy anyway. And I think eventually, I do think eventually, maybe a year or two from now, we will have, maybe he goes against Trevor Lawrence or somebody. We will have Purdy playing a first overall pick in the Super Bowl. Again, just so they can hashtag it first versus last. But yeah, and this is an interesting game right here. Do the Ravens start off 0-3, or they both go to 1-2? Again, I think Dallas starting off not too hot is how the NFL is going to go about this, just so people can really take any conviction they have in the Cowboys away. And then when they get into the Super Bowl, it won't seem as obvious. And again, they just don't want to pay people out. So, yeah, I think this year of all years would be the year for the Cowboys if you think about it. So, yeah, that's my Super Bowl pick. Cowboys versus Chiefs, of course. We called the Chiefs beginning of the end of last year. Once we saw that it was going to be that Mahomes had two, and now he's going for Jordan. And the only way you can really put him in Brady's category is if he does something Brady never did. Because he's not winning 5 more Super Bowls. So I have a feeling Pat might have a shorter career, to be honest. Maybe plays until like his mid-30s. And I think he's already like coming up on 30. I know he's not super young, but I know he's not super old either. So, yeah, I think we're going to get a 3P from Mahomes, and it'll be against the Cowboys. And that, again, that's just my opinion based off of what we saw last year, how the narratives are going. And for the Cowboys, just the Vegas line just makes sense to me. But yeah, so Jets cover, I think. I think they cover pretty easily. That's another one you could play maybe, the adjusted line, so Jets minus, or, it's actually a pleaser is what they call them if you pick more than one team, though. So basically the opposite of a teaser, Jets minus like 13 or Jets minus 12. I think that would be a solid pick. It would pay over 200, plus 200, and I just really think they're going to establish themselves against the Patriots here. So we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be, again, more of a gritty game, and I just have a feeling we're going to get, I know we're going to have like a sack fumble, but I have a feeling we're going to get a touchdown off of something stupid, whether, again, like it's a pick or something of that nature. Brissett's even looking like a guy who just threw a pick six. Sometimes, someone brought that up to me before, and it's funny because it does happen a lot. Or even if you look at the articles after, they'll show like so-and-so got fired, and in the picture he looks like his dog just died or something. They do that stuff all the time, so sometimes I feel like these little preview pictures might even be giving it away. You got like a laser-focused Aaron, and then Brissett kind of giving the stink eye to the replay booth. So we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, I just have a feeling that the Jets are kind of rough up the Patriots pretty bad here. So yeah, that's my play, is the Jets cover. Again, we had a better week. I think 8-6. So usually we were in the double digits, like not to be braggadocious, but very often last year we were going like 10-4, 11-3. I think we had an undefeated week in there. Of course, that's kind of bound to happen when you have this many weeks, so it's nothing crazy. But yeah, I think we're going to have a even better week this week. As the season goes on again, I think we'll be able to kind of see how they're positioning certain teams and what lines just don't make sense. And again, this one's just a little heavy for me, so that's why I like the Jets to cover here. So take care and happy earnings.